How's it going, and welcome to No Fun Allowed's Guide series on Curse of Strahd, a 5th edition module. We are continuing along with our amazingly, epically long series on Castle Ravenloft. Gonna be a ton of spoilers. Players don't watch this. DMs that want added insight on every single location, go ahead and stick around because there is so much to cover here. Alrighty, so picking up last where we left off, Area 29, the Creaky Landing. The Creaky Landing just goes to the staircase in Area 16. So as a reminder, you can be in the chapel and then just go right up the staircase and you'll be right here. And over this balcony in Area 28, you would be able to see everything that's going on in the chapel. So that is a question. If you are down below, would you be able to see the zombies in the throne? I would say no if they're sitting down and it's a little ways back. I imagine that this is a lot more of a balcony that you'd be able to see over if you were, actually standing. Because as you can see through the isometric map here, by the dimensions, it doesn't look like you'd be able to see, especially if you were directly below. I imagine though, if you went to the back of the chapel there, right up next to the pane glass, and you turned, yeah, you'd be able to see the zombies then. But not if you're in the just traditional normal part of the chapel itself. In Area 30 here, we have the King's Accountant. So this can be accessed one of two ways, either at the staircase in Area 21, or from the audience hall in Area 25. Your players make the way inside of here, and they're going to see a clown fiesta of a mess. But more importantly, they also see that there is someone in here. And it's not just any random vampire or monster, it is just a poor human who is literally shackled to this place. Poor Leif Lipsig here has been trapped here for quite some time, and he has been bound to be the accountant of Castle Ravenloft. So he sits here and does accounting work all day. He has a pretty unfortunate life. He is not evil, he just is simply a guy that got taken away and is trying to make the best of a situation. And to that degree, he's become a little bit obsessed. He has actually grown grumpy with Strahd because Strahd doesn't allow him to see all of his treasure. And he, being the accountant that he is, he just wants to go ahead and, count on all the treasure. Now, this is going to come completely out of left field. Your players, have been battling monsters and jump scares and this and that. And the vast majority of NPCs your players will interact with here are working for Strahd and will in fact betray the party at any given time. So if your players have interacted with a lot of those people, they obviously might just go ahead and just have a, fight on sight mentality. And if that is the case, that is bad news bears because Lipsig is of course not evil, but two, if he feels threatened in any way, he's going to go ahead and use an action to pull that rope. And in 1d6 rounds, one of the creatures will appear, and that'll be, go ahead and roll a d4. Some of these could be pretty freaking bad. So I really like this encounter. It definitely makes it so that your players, if they are always making sure to do diplomacy first, then at least they'll have something to do with this. So if they actually end up on Lipsig's good side, one, they don't get attacked, which is nice. But two, they'll actually be able to uncover some information. So what's interesting here in the text is, it states, Leif will divulge the hiding place of the holy symbol of Ravenkind, as indicated by your card reading. And he can go ahead and draw a crude map. So I think this might have been like a little bit of a gloss over, because if the holy symbol of Ravenkind was literally anywhere in the world at all whatsoever, I don't think it would make sense that he would know where it is. Like if it was located, all the way at Yester Hill, or if it's located in the Amber Temple or whatever. It doesn't make any sense that he would know where they are. But what I think that they meant by this was, if all of the items are located in Castle Ravenloft, then he would know where the holy symbol of Ravenkind would be. So that might be a bit of a little misstep or whatever, but whatever the case may be, I would go ahead and expand upon that. If you have any item that is located in Castle Ravenloft, I would go ahead and say that Leif would know the location of it, or at least a general understanding of it, and draw that crude map. And that crude map could be as simple as drawing some squiggly lines, and that's the end of story, because he unfortunately doesn't get to go out that much. So for treasure in this room, we have these 4 chests. What's funny is Leif has really not been paying too much attention, and he has unfortunately lost the key. So with a DC 15 investigation check, and after 10 minutes of searching, your players can go ahead and find that key. So they can go ahead and start opening up some of these chests. 2 of the chests contain 10,000 copper pieces each, the 3rd contains 1,000 gold each, the 4th contains 500 platinum, and also a manual of bodily health. So the manual of bodily health is incredibly strong. If someone was able to spend 48 hours over the course of 6 days reading this, their constitution would increase by 2. And that is retroactive. So if you go ahead and increase your constitution, your health is going to shoot up by 1 times whatever level you are. That is insanely good. But the thing is if this happens as, they're trapped in Castle Ravenloft and you're running the encounters nonstop, then unfortunately they're not going to be able to read this, because every single time they're reading this thing, they're going to get jumped, right? So this is definitely intended to be something that you try and get away with and use at a later date. So if your players come in here guns blazing, they may be able to kill him, and that's the end of the story. But if they go ahead and talk it out, and they discover that Leaf is in a terrible state of affairs, then they might decide to be, heroes and try and save him. I would go ahead and say that Leaf is deathly afraid of going out. And so if he is removed from his shackles, he's going to say, hey, that's nice and all, but I'm not leaving this room. And I think that's very fitting for the character, because he is just a mortal man, and he doesn't want to deal with the creepy crawlies located all around here. But if your players start dragging him out all around Castle Ravenloft, then yeah, he's going to be a coward, he's going to be terrified, and if anybody shows up, especially any of the cast of Castle Ravenloft, then go ahead and have Leaf say, hey, I didn't mean to do this, I swear they dragged me out here. And once again, that'll be really fitting for the character. In Area 31, we have the Trapworks. So, for those of you that have actually read through this thing, you may have glanced over this and discovered that this is one of the most convoluted traps that's ever existed in D&D-dom. And you're not wrong, right? This is a very complicated one. I've seen a lot of people suggest simply removing this thing because you don't need it. And more often than not, you can just go ahead and just skip this thing and there's nothing lost. But trying to complete this thing all throughout, I am going to go ahead and go into immense detail about this. So this is what we're working with. There is a lot of mechanics tied to this thing, and it's very vertical, it's very nonsensical, there's a lot to read, but I do think it is a genuinely interesting trap, just because of how unique it is. Your players probably haven't encountered anything like this, and hopefully they don't encounter anything like this ever again. So to start off with, in Area 31 here, the important thing to consider is that it's more than likely your players don't get access to here through that main door, because it is just a random hidden wall in the hallway, and maybe your players aren't exactly looking for it, or they just fail their rolls. So when they arrive in Area 31, that is the mechanism that they'll use to potentially try and avert this whole terrible mess. So if they're in Area 31, they can see that it descends 90 feet down to Area 61 and ascends 40 feet up to Area 31B. Another 40 feet above that is Area 47. So operating the machinery in this room allows the elevator to rise and fall. The elevator trap itself is located in Area 61, but of course we're going to go over all the pertinent information right here. A character can spend a 1 whole minute disabling the machinery in this room. The elevator trap won't function until the machinery is repaired. So we don't get any information about that. We don't get information about who would actually do this, and we don't get any information on how long it would take. We can obviously infer that it would be Cyrus Bellevue that, fixes this thing up, because he's reasonably the only one that would actually be operating this thing. But in regards of how long it would take to fix, I personally would go ahead and say that it would take a whole week-long affair to fix, or maybe at least a day. Not something that would be easily done in the span of minutes, because it's a lot easier to destroy than it is to fix. So it is a very convoluted machine, and if your players spend a decent amount of time beating the thing up, then it may require a whole bunch of random parts that are located around the castle, and would take a tremendous amount of time to fix. So the iron lever set into the western wall is normally in the down position. Moving it to the up position activates the trap and raises the elevator. Sliding it back down lowers the elevator and resets the trap. So when the elevator trap in Area 61 is activated, all the chains, pulleys, and gears in this room move at once. It takes 10 seconds, 1 round, which is very interesting because I think that's once again another holdover from older editions of D&D, for the elevator to reach the top of the shaft, and the machinery doesn't stop until the elevator completes its journey. If you are inside of Area 31, meaning that you came from the elevator or potentially from the shaft by climbing up somehow, then you can easily spot the hidden door there that leads to Area 37, no roll required. Going on to Area A, the elevator shaft itself, the shaft is 170 feet tall. So something I would strongly recommend is, if you're playing online or if you're playing in person, whatever, go ahead and jot down somewhere the verticality of this location. Whether it be in person, you do sticky notes, or you just go ahead and draw over this thing. Just go ahead and add the verticality to this place, because Not understanding the verticality is very odd. You should be able to look at these things and say, okay, it takes this many feet to go here and there, and you should always be tracking where they are when they're moving up and down, so that way they don't get lost. And more importantly, you don't get lost. So it's here where we can also find the interesting way this elevator acts. There is a counterweight to it. When the elevator trap is activated in Area 61, a stone elevator compartment measuring 10 feet on a side rises up from the western wall of the shaft. At the same time, a solid block of stone, also 10 feet on a side, descends, acting as a counterweight. So the important thing to note here is that scaling the shaft is impossible without the aid of magic or a climber's kit, because the walls are smooth and slick with mildew, and the greasy iron chains are too thick and slippery to grasp. So once again, that's another debate on if you have someone that can natively climb, like, if they have claws or if they're a thief, do you allow them to do that? That's entirely up to you. That's entirely your prerogative. But if they have a climber's kit, that wouldn't be that big of a deal. They would just simply need to go ahead and hammer in some pitons somewhere. Set into the roof of the shaft is a 5-foot square stone trap door that can be pushed open to go to Area 47. In Area 31B, we have the shaft access. Once again, you got to understand the verticality of this place. This vantage point is 130 feet from the bottom of the shaft, 40 feet down is Area 31, and 40 feet above is a stone trap door in the ceiling that opens to Area 47. A door in the north wall is easy to spot from the inside here, no check required, and opens to Area 39. I will be covering the convoluted mess that is this elevator trap in Area 61 once we actually get to it. Area 32, we have Maid In Hell. I love these puns. So your players make their way through here either through one of the secret doors or they descend down from Area 45, and there they can discover this room filled with a maid named Helga Ruvok. So Helga is immediately going to feign innocence. She's going to say that she is the daughter of the village bootmaker and she was kidnapped and forced to work in this castle, and she pleads on her hands and knees to go ahead and be saved from this awful place. Of course, she's a vampire spawn, totally working with Strahd, and she's just, basically making sure that she doesn't get wiped out by a group of people. She is going to go ahead and wait for reinforcements. Once Strahd either shows up or enough forces show up, she's going to go ahead and strike out against the party. So what's interesting here is that her acting skills aren't exactly acting. She is, in fact, the bootmaker's daughter she claims to be. However, she chose a life of evil with Strahd. That is all the information we get. So we don't know who this bootmaker is. We don't get any of that information. But I would go ahead and say that they are from the village of Barovia. And maybe Helga decided that, what? Screw this whole living in fear thing. I'm going to go ahead and move to the castle. And maybe just being absolutely crazy, she decided to go to the castle on her own. And then maybe Strahd said, hey, I admire your courage. I'm going to go ahead and have you work for me. Helga is wearing some pretty awesome jewelry here. She has a gold necklace with a ruby pendant given by Strahd. That's pretty cool. The necklace is almost 5 centuries old and is worth 750 GP. Once again, if your players come here and they loot Castle Ravenloft for all of its riches, they're going to be living like kings in the real world. Area 33, the King's Apartment Stair. Once again, your players are only going to access here if they go through Area 45 or if they go through one of the secret doors here. If your players aren't as observant and they don't go through these secret doors, then they'll just discover, the room filled with Helga, and that's pretty much it. But of course, we know that there is a lot more access to be gained here. In Area 34, we have the Servants' upper floor. This is the staircase your players could have gone to if they ascended the staircase in Area 24. And it's here where they'll find a pretty interesting sight. A plain white dress, yellowed by the age, flies out of the wardrobe and begins to dance in the middle of the room. The dress flaps around to the music of the storm. So your players immediately might get suspicious and think that it's some sort of invisible creature or, whatever the case may be. But, of course, they'll discover that this dancing dress is harmless. If anybody touches this thing, it's going to collapse harmlessly to the ground. Set into the south wall behind the hanging mirror on the west wardrobe is a secret door. It can be pulled open to reveal a closet choked with dust and cobwebs that contain a wooden ladder that leads up 20 feet to another secret door in the lower staircase, Area 20. So I just love that, right? There's just like secret walls on secret doors to secret ladders to the verticality of this place is just absolutely amazing. The fact that your players can meander about so many different ways. But of course, you do have to consider a lot of this. That is what all these little indicators and markers are here for. Have those everywhere and expand upon them. We only get this one that says ladder up 20 feet to 34 to 20, right? make more of those. Have it where that staircase right there in Area 34 says leads to Area 24. Make your life simple. Make it so that you don't have to all of a sudden keep on guessing where everything is going. And look at that, we're already blazing through this. We're already on the 3rd floor, the Rooms of Weeping. In Area 35, we have the Guardian Vermin. It's more than likely your players will arrive here for the first time if they climb the staircase to Area 21, but of course they could be coming from the other way. In Area 35, they are going to be in for a terrible time because they'll see that flanking the door are 2 alcoves in shadow. A dark, vaguely man-shaped figure stands in each alcove. However, these are not man. These are beast, as these dark figures are 4 swarms of rats piled on top of one another, and as soon as people get close, they're going to go ahead and descend down and swarm upon the party. Pretty creepy, pretty fun. These rats are under Strahd's command and are going to go ahead and fight to the death, and as a reminder, there's 2 in each alcove, not 4 stacked on top of one another. But think about how just creepy that would be. You're in the darkness, you're looking around, you see an oddly man-shaped figure, and then all of a sudden you see it slowly dissolve and crumble into hundreds of rats that are crawling toward you. Pretty awesome, really. As your players look around and look at the door in particular, they'll see that the steel door is engraved with the images of a human king in armor astride a horse, a majestic range of mountains and shooting stars in the background. Tiny figures of people and wolves frame the image. So, of course, this is in Strahd's visage, as he was a human king in armor that rode a horse, and he dominated a mountain range. But, you know, that makes me think, like, oh, if there is people and wolves in the background, is this a later addition? Who knows? In Area 36, we have the Dining Hall of the Count. You know you're rich when you have 2 separate dining halls in your house. So when your players make their way in here, they'll be able to see that this place clearly has not seen use in quite some time. And what's interesting here is that there is a cake, but it's not just any cake, it is a wedding cake. The wedding cake is over 4 centuries old, kept in its current rotten state by the will of Strahd. The toy figure of the groom from the top of the cake was cast to the floor long ago. A character who searches the dusty floor finds the figurine with a DC 10 perception check. So pretty much if they stumble across in here, they're going to find it. If the characters take this groom figure, then unfortunately for them, they might be in for a bad time. Because what's interesting here is they can take that groom idol and leave this room, but when they return, billowing drapes draw your eye to the window. Each have been drawn outward. Scattered about the floor are chunks of the moldy cake, as if something had burst out of it. So, you know, that's pretty cool. Your players moving around Castle Ravenloft, they return to an area at some point, and then they see things are changing. Pretty awesome. So we are given 2 explanations on why this happened. Pretty interesting here. The first one being Strahd just simply smashes the cake and tries to frighten the party. You know, that seems pretty odd to me that Strahd's been keeping this cake for so long, and then he's just willing to go ahead and blow this thing up, but whatever the case. You know, that is just a fun little jump scare. The second one being Strahd's hate assumes a actual corporeal form and bursts out of the cake. And this is in the form of an invisible stalker, which is going to kill whoever is in possession of the groom figurine. So it is possible, of course, that your players take this groom figurine, move out of the room, and then just go ahead and drop the figurine off somewhere else. In which case, if you have this scenario play out, then who's the invisible stalker going to attack? I would go ahead and just say that it attacks whoever had the figurine, whoever took it out of the room, because that just seems to make the most sense. Another cool feature of this room is the fact that there is a large harp in the corner. If anyone is feeling musically inclined, they can go ahead and make their way over there and make a DC 15 performance check on the harp. If they succeed, then a ghost will appear. The ghost of Piddlewick, a short little man dressed as a fool with a tiny jingling bell at the end of his pointy dunce cap. As soon as he appears, he will ask, "Why have you summoned me from beyond the grave?" Regardless of the answer, he is going to commend whoever played that ensemble because it was worthy. Perhaps after a little bit of talking, or maybe just immediately, he's going to go ahead and say, "In my crypt below the castle, thou shalt find a treasure worthy of one so talented as thee. May it help thee set this troubled place to rest." If your players converse with Piddlewick for a while, and they ask him who he is, he will say Piddlewick, and inevitably they're going to ask how he died, and he's going to go ahead and say, "I fell down the stairs." However, if your players are in possession of Piddlewick II, he is going to point out and say, "He pushed me down the stairs." Now, Piddlewick II, who the heck is that? It is this little guy. This guy's located in Area 59, and we'll be going over him once we arrive to that location. So that is not the only instrument located in this room. There's also a lute. If your players make their way up to it, they can discover that this instrument is an instrument of the bards, a pretty awesome item. So instrument of the bards are always unique. This one is a DOS loot in particular, which gives you the additional benefits of animal friendship, protection from energy, specifically fire, and protection from poison. Pretty unique. But the only problem is that these things require attunement by bards. So if you don't have a bard in the party, this thing is worthless unless you go ahead and change up the attunement requirement. In Area 37, we have the study. Once again, look at this beautiful art. Oh, this really makes it come to life. You open up one of these doors and then all of a sudden you see this excellent study, this library, this roaring fireplace, all these books, all these chairs and all that. And of course, the centerpiece right there, an image that is going to resonate with your players because that eerily looks like Irina. The painting above the fireplace here depicts Tatiana, a beautiful young woman with auburn hair. Strahd commissioned the painting over 4 centuries ago to impress his beloved. The fact that Irina Kolyana looks exactly alike to Tatiana is proof to Strahd that both women are the same in soul. Which is correct, of course. They are, in fact, one and the same. What's fun about this location is that there is a bevy of doors to go through here, but there's also a secret door hidden in the back of the fireplace. Of course, if the fire is not extinguished, then of course people are going to take damage. They will take 1d10 fire damage and catch on fire, and every single time on their turn they have to take 1d10 fire damage until they go ahead and spend a full action to go ahead and put it out. What's also unique here is that for treasure here, we get listed that the books in here would total up to a whopping 80,000 gold. Once again, transporting it would be a challenge, but this is probably for that end game. If your players beat Strahd, then the curse is lifted and they can get the heck out of here. If they decide to ransack and loot all of Castle Ravenloft, they'd be set for life. We get a fun little rollable table, and when you go ahead and pick up a book, you can go ahead and say that, oh, it's an epic novel, or oh, it's a historical text. Just some fun stuff to add a little bit of flavor here. What's very interesting about this location as well is that this is one of the locations for the teleportation located in Area 78. And they all arrive right in front of the painting of Tatiana. So once again, this is a very easy sell that if your players are in here for some time, that anybody could go ahead and show up at a moment's notice, just popping out of thin air. If the treasure is located in this room, then it is located right there on the mantelpiece, right underneath the portrait of Tatiana. And if Strahd is located here for the final fight, he is encountered sitting in one of the chairs, staring into the fire. Once again, I'm going to be doing a whole thing on the monologues you can have with that. Pretty fun stuff. And would you look at that, we are now 37 locations down. In the previous video, I said 86 locations in total Castle Ravenloft. I was thinking of another location located in another book. Castle Ravenloft has 88 locations, so my apologies for that, but it shouldn't really matter. So we are now 37 down. So much to go through, so much left to uncover, and so much fun times to be had. So go ahead and tell me, are you liking this area of the castle? Do you like the first floor, second floor, or third floor more at this point? Are you liking some of the location that you're seeing? Are you going to change up any of the encounters that are found here? I personally think that a lot of them are pretty fitting, but of course that entirely depends on the kind of group that you have. Go ahead and tell me all these things because I want to know. That's going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to all my amazing patrons up here. You guys are absolutely incredible. Thank you so very much. That is going to do it for me. Thank you so much for listening, and I cannot wait to see you all in the next one.